between the county government of Nairobi and the national government, stating that it is the only way to propel development in Nairobi County. He has accused a section of Nairobi leaders opposed to the move, including embattled ODM Secretary General, that is Edwin Sifuna, and Embakasi East Member of Parliament, that is Babu Owino, of derailing change in the capital.
And when you find young, non-exposed leaders opposed to what the government is trying to do, you can come up, you can criticize government on issues of national importance, but not something beneficial to the majority of the people or something concerning the country. We need to revisit Kenya's constitution to tame some of other things and to say that, one, there must be some authoritative, whether it is from the cabinet or there must be a sense of direction from one direction. Not everybody now trying to rule Kenya. And then you find young men here who claim to be the future presidents, future leaders. They want to warn them. Addressing public rallies, having a lot of people behind you thinking they can't make you a president. Yes. Jaramogo.
All right, moving on, Mandela Chapchap party leader and Labour PS Special Programs Cabinet Secretary, that is Alfred Mutua, says that he will not fold the party. Speaking during the burial of former Machakos Mayor Timothy Wamua at Kituli Primary School in Kadhi, Machakos County, Mua emphasized that MCCP will fully participate in the upcoming 2027 general elections, noting that it will field candidates for all elective positions. Although MCCP is working with President William Ruto, United Democratic Alliance, that is UDA coalition, Mua stated that the party will not merge with the UDA, affirming that it maintains its own platform and strategy as it seeks to engage voters.
Wakati nilihama kwa William Ruto, nikasema hata William Ruto akianguka nitakuwa na yeye, na akashinda, na niko na yeye kwa sababu mimi ni mwaminifu. And I'm loyal to William Ruto the same I was loyal to Mwai Kibaki and others, because loyalty in politics is important. Si kuwa uko na msimamo hapa na hapa na hapa na hapa, it's a matter of convenience. You need to be loyal.
Now, more than 1,000 traders at Githurai Market are counting heavy losses after their stalls were demolished overnight in an operation by the Kenya National Highways Authority, that is KENHA, to pave the way for the construction of a bus base hours after traders staged protest against the planned exercise. The traders say that the demolition has abruptly cut off their only source of income, pushing their families into hardship. Although KENHA has issued a 7-day notice to vacate, the traders accuse the government of failing to provide alternative trading spaces, claiming that the authorities have broken promises to end forced demolitions. Tensions remain high, with heavy police presence reported in the area amid fears of fresh protests along the Thika Superhighway.
Okay. Wakatupea muda kiasi juu hata kulingana na venye economy ya Kenya iko very low economy. Kwa hivyo wakatupea muda kiasi tukaekae huku tuweze kuendelea na kazi huku. Juu hakuna mahali watu wengi wanaenda.
Hakuna kitu niko nayo, hii ni hasara tupu. Tuliambiwa tunaenda Singapore, sasa saa hii tunaenda Russia. Hata afadhali wakatutafutia kazi tuende huko Russia ukufe ukitafutia watoto kuliko kukufia kwenu na hakuna kitu unapata, ni hasara tupu.
Unaambilia watu utawapatia alternative penye wataenda kufanyia biashara zao, na kabla hujawapatia hiyo alternative unakuja kuwafanyia hii madhara.
Now, the Parliamentary Education Committee has issued an ultimatum to the Teachers Service Commission to release all certificates for students who have completed their education in schools. Committee Chairman Julius Meli said that many schools' principals still retain certificates despite the President's orders to the principals to release the certificates. The committee chairman says that the government has already covered examination fees. They have also called out Education PS Julius Bitok for being incompetent in the execution of his duties in the ministry.
So we really want all those certificates be released to parents or to students, to their owners. And no time should the principals retain the certificates again. Thank you so much. I think our members are meeting in those is over. Thank you, Teacher Service Commission. We'll expect you to give us your wish list on the issues that are giving us the gaps. Members, let's remain.
So I want to take it out that the PS has a very low opinion on the matters of the House, and this committee should actually sanction him and impose the greatest penalty possible. And this matter, recently in Naivasha, you had none other than the majority leader actually say that the PS was clueless. He had a reason why he said so. And Chair, it is just to affirm that maybe it's high time that something happens to that ministry. Thank you.
All right, moving on, Interior Cabinet CS, that is Kipchumba Murkomen, has issued a stern warning to politicians who he says are disrespecting his office and engaging in unethical incitement under the guise of early campaigns ahead of next year's general elections. Speaking during a security meeting in Naivasha constituency, that is in Nakuru County, Murkomen assured Kenyans that there will be no chaos like with that witnessed in 2007, stating that his ministry is fully prepared to guarantee security for every citizen. On his part, Rift Valley Regional Commissioner Abdi Hussein urged politicians to exercise wisdom and responsibility while conducting their campaigns in different parts of the country.
Kama hakuna amani, so don't compromise. Ni bahati mimi sijakuwa kwa hiyo kiti yako. Kama ni mimi, hii dunia inaweza kuwa ingine. Inaweza kuwa ingine. Kwa sababu hakuna kuogopa, ningepasua hii kitu. Lakini sasa hiyo line si yangu. Yangu nachea hapa Rift Valley, na ndio nimesema Rift Valley usijaribu. Don't. Sababu tutamenyana. Tutaingia na wewe kwa mchanga. Usituletee.
What we cannot allow in this Nakuru and in the Republic of Kenya is somebody to use elections as an excuse kugonganisha wa Kenya wapigane na watu waumizane. Na mimi, this is personal to me. Yeah, it is something I personally deep in my heart. There is no enough blood that can be shed for someone to hold public office. And I want to say this, it is not possible. Ile vitu muliona hapa 2007, we are not going to see a repeat in Kenya anymore. Yeah? So, ambieni wale wanaomba kura, wale wanashindana na wengine, wale ambao wanapanga njama kutafuta magengi na kupiganisha watu, that we will not allow, this government of President William Ruto will not allow, I will not allow as his cabinet secretary, and the Inspector General is not going to allow. Our police officers are under firm instructions to deal with people who are inciting violence against communities with finality.
Right now, Cabinet Secretary for Special Programs, Geoffrey Ruku, visited Langata Walls in Kajiado West constituency to assess the ongoing drought situation and oversee the distribution of relief aid to affected families, now most of whom largely depend on livestock for their livelihood. Addressing residents during the public meeting, Ruku assured them that the government has put in place farm strategies to address the effects of climate change and recurring drought in order to protect Kenyans from the devastating impacts of prolonged dry spells. Now, during the visit, the CS was accompanied by local administration officials and community leaders and held discussions with residents who have been severely affected by the prolonged drought caused by the significant shortage of pasture in various parts of Kajiado West.
Zimetambaa kutoka Eldamat, Kabutei, Dalalektok, Matapato mpaka Tanzania. Ng'ombe zetu zimehama. Hawa watu ni kama wamewachwa hatima.
Serikali ya Mheshimiwa William Ruto imehakikisha kwamba hakuna Mkenya yeyote ataaga dunia kwa sababu ya kuwa na njaa. Kwa hivyo tumepanga mipango ya chakula ya watu, tumepanga vile vile mpango ya chakula ya mifugo katika kona zile ambazo mifugo inataka chakula. Na ndiyo maana leo tumefika na mvua, lakini tumefika pia na baraka ya kuhakikisha wale ambao wanahitaji chakula watapata. Kwa hivyo hii chakula si ya matajiri, hii chakula ni ya wale ambao wanahitaji nini? Chakula.
Kama mheshimiwa ama MCY area, na tunashikilia hii serikali yetu, tunakuomba sana. Hapa tunaye soko kubwa ambayo tuliweza kujenga mahali fulani, lakini sheds hatuna. Na ninajua kwamba uko na hiyo program under your office, tafadhali mimi ninaomba kama unaweza tuwekea katu shades hapo au kina mama wafanyie biashara hapo ndani, itakuwa ni manufaa kubwa.
Moving on to matters healthcare, Health Cabinet Secretary Edwin Duale has said that teachers are now benefiting from the services under the Social Health Authority, that is SHA, after joining the scheme in December. Now speaking during a parliamentary session on the budget, Duale said that police officers will also be enrolled into the health insurance scheme starting in April. Now he noted that the government has saved 8 billion Kenya shillings since teachers were registered under SHA. Duale further revealed that the Ministry of Health requires 38 billion Kenya shillings to successfully implement and strengthen primary healthcare services across the country.
I'm very happy today. I'm happy also. In the previous scheme, our teachers were only accessing 800 health facilities across the country. They were only accessing one level 6, which is private owned by the insurer. Today our teachers are accessing over 9,000 facilities across the country. They can access all the level 6, public, private and faith-based. Today our teachers have a better package. For example, their foreign medical is 2.7 million. They get a better package. So our teachers, we have served them from December to January to February now. And we are taking over our armed police and prison 1st of April. And when I come back to this committee in another 6 months, I will prove to you that the country is going to save close to 8 billion by just shifting teachers from a private medical scheme to the Social Health Authority. They're getting more package, better served, more facilities, and we will save as a country. And I want to go on record, we will save close to 7 to 8 billion.
Now, Embu Senator Alexander Mundigi has called on the opposition coalition to cancel the nationwide protest scheduled for Friday of alleged police brutality and instead embrace dialogue. Now, the demonstrations were planned following claims that no action had been taken against those responsible for an attack that occurred during a church service in Othaya, Nyeri County, which was attended by the opposition leaders, including former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Now, speaking during a burial ceremony in Igumori, Mbere South constituency, Senator Mundigi said that past experiences show that protests often turn violent, leading to destruction of property and loss of lives. He emphasized that grievances can be addressed through dialogue without resorting to street demonstrations. The senator urged the opposition to explore alternative ways of representing their concerns, including writing to Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja in order to find lasting solution instead of holding protest.
Mambo ya maandamano haitatusaidia na mambo ya vita haitatusaidia, kwa sababu ndume mbili wakipigana nyasi inaumia, na nyasi ni wale watu walitupatia kibarua wa kipindi hii ya miaka 5. Wale watu wa mlengo wa kukataa kila kitu, tunataka tuseme wataandamana lakini watafanya mambo mabaya, na saa nyingine wakati maandamano iko vijana ama wezi wanaingia huko ndani na watu wengi wanauawa, vijana wanatandikwa, pia hata vitu inaharibiwa. Kwa hivyo mimi siungi mambo ya maandamano. Kama ni mambo ya kuuliza swali, wangeenda kwa mkubwa wa polisi ambaye wa Kenya mzima, kama ni barua wasukue, na pia kama ni kitu haijafanyika iweze kuangaliwa itafanyika namna gani. Lakini tukirudi pale, wakati tulikuwa pale, economy iliharibika, barabara iliharibika, hali mingi za watu ikaharibika. Kwa hiyo mimi nasema vitu kama hizo nikiwa senator wa Embu County haitatusaidia, kwa sababu niko na usuhuda wakati ule Embu County vitu mingi iliporwa, supermarket, hata vijana na wasichana wakavutwa kazi.
Now, Kitui County Senator Enoch Wambua Kio has strongly criticized the recent remarks by Jubilee Party leader Fred Matiang'i, the Jubilee flag bearer Fred Matiang'i, claiming that they are part of a scheme to politically control the Ukambani community ahead of the next election. Speaking at an AIC church service in Kitui County, Wambua advised Dr. Matiang'i to exit the opposition coalition if he is not satisfied with the voice of the majority. Now, he emphasized that the Kamba community will not accept political intimidation or coercion. Now, the senator further stated that the opposition should unveil its presidential candidate by June this year to begin campaigns against President William Ruto as he seeks a second term in office.
Wameanza kutumanage. You know, we are now being managed in a very, very funny way. Hii maneno ya kuwa managed kama Wakamba, na sasa naongea nikiwa nyumbani. Maneno ya Mkamba kuwa managed in respect of the presidential candidature wa opposition. Hiyo maneno iliisha na election ya 2022. Never again, and I say this nikiwa nyumbani kwa watu wangu, never again shall we be managed by anyone.
Now, a section of women leaders from Meru County have publicly declared their support for Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, insisting that he should retain the position as the country heads towards 2027 elections. Speaking in Meru Town, the women leaders also urged Oburu Oginga and members of the Orange Democratic Movement to stop engaging in early debate over the 2027 deputy presidential seat. Now, they stated that as women from Meru County, the family stand behind Professor Kithure Kindiki and fully support his continued service as deputy president. Additionally, they advised ODM to focus on strengthening its internal and external party structures before expressing interest in the deputy presidency.
Kama wa Meru tunakuja kusema Kindiki ni mmoja wetu, lakini anafanyia Kenya kazi. Tunamwambia ya kwamba aendelee na kazi yake ya kufanyia Wakenya kazi, asistuliwe na wenye wanazunguka huku wakipiga kelele. Sisi kama wamama tuko na yeye na tutamchunga, kwa sababu uchungu wa mwana aujuaye mzazi. Kwa hivyo sisi tuko hapo na tunasema Kindiki aendelee.
Sisi atufurahi tukiwa wa Meru, aswa sisi wa mama atufurahi kabisa, na tunataka kuambia wale wengine wa ODM, mkitaka kupanga serikali yenu, acheni kiti ya kwanza ya president, acheni ya pili ya deputy president, pangeni foleni nyuma.
Na tunasema hakuna tofauti ya Tharaka na Meru. Sote ni watu moja. Na Kindiki afike Nairobi lazima apitie Meru. Ama kuna njia ya kutoka Tharaka akienda Nairobi? Lazima apitie Meru ndiye aende Nairobi. Kwa hivyo sisi tunamuunga mkono. Wale wako kwa broad based government, tafadhali tunawaomba kwa heshima na tahadhima, mutulie tu kidogo, wamalize kupika chapati yao side yote mbili. Chapati imepikwa side moja, wawapatie nafasi wapike na upande hiyo ingine ndio chapati iweze kuiva.
Now, Kiharu Member of Parliament Ndimbi Nyoro has emphasized the need to strengthen accountability and transparency in the management of public funds as he continues to strongly oppose the government's plan to privatize Kenya Pipeline Company and sell a 15% stake in Safaricom. Speaking during the 34th Economic Forum held in Nairobi, Nyoro said that the sale of public assets is a sensitive matter that requires a broad national debate and the parliamentary involvement. He warned that without sufficient transparency, the country risks losing key strategic resources that have supported the economy for many years. Now, Nyoro noted that Kenya Pipeline Company is a strategic institution that significantly contributes to the government revenue through the transportation and storage of petroleum products, while Safaricom remains one of the most profitable companies in the country.
Government has to revisit this transaction. And Vodacom, which is the parent of the buyers buying Safaricom, if there is any deal you have done with any government official which is making Kenya lose over 100 billion, you are going to take the burden. The directors of Vodacom, I said, I'm waiting to see their response. Because I'll give Kenyans their phone numbers. If government cannot speak for us in the sale of Safaricom, Kenyans will directly speak to the directors of Vodacom, including the chairman and the CEO. Because there is no way I'll be here as an MP and as a leader. I have experience in the stock market. I know people are taking advantage of Kenya, and people tell me, oh, for political decency, you can't do that. Political decency when Kenya is losing 100 billion. Wacha ikae.
Moving on to the corridors of justice, a 35-year-old man who last month confessed to killing a 7-year-old girl, Tamara Blessing, has been sentenced to death by a Nyeri court. The man, identified as Nicholas Julius Macharia, received the death penalty after admitting to committing the crime in Wetimere, that is in Nyeri County, on the 24th day of last year. Now, while appearing before the court, Macharia claimed that he committed the act after being influenced by evil forces.
Being suffered by the minor cannot be fathomable. It is beyond human understanding. Describing the convict as a beast will be an understatement. What is unable to discern any role played by the devil. The law does not recognize claim to supernatural powers. In this instance, the devil is innocent. Accordingly, I find that you are hereby sentenced to death. A death warrant shall be transmitted to the competent authority for signing and carrying out of the sentence after 30 days stay of execution.
And the verdict has given us a sense of accountability and closure. Now at least we can move to the next step of healing. So now it will be easier, knowing that our child got justice that is deserved.
Pain suffered by the minor cannot be fathomable. It is beyond human understanding. Describing the convict as a beast will be an understatement. What is unable to discern any role played by the devil. The law does not recognize claim to supernatural powers. In this instance, the devil is innocent. Accordingly, I find that you are hereby sentenced to death. A death warrant shall be transmitted to the competent authority for signing and carrying out of the sentence after 30 days stay of execution.
And the verdict has given us a sense of accountability and closure. Now at least we can move to the next step of healing. So now it will be easier, knowing that our child got justice that is deserved.
While still in the corridors of justice, Charles Kanjama has been elected as the president of the Law Society of Kenya. Kanjama won the LSK presidential seat after garnering 3,728 votes, while Peter Wanyama came second with 2,616 votes, while Mwaura Kabata came third after garnering 2,086 votes. Now Kanjama takes over from Faith Odhiambo, who has been at the helm of the body. Now Kanjama brings over the 2 decades of legal expertise to the 2026-2028 council. Kanjama's victory reflects on a desire for tried and tested leadership at a time when the society role is a national discourse has never been more vital. Of course, that was actually held yesterday, where they were holding the elections.
I think voting is being done in a very smooth and transparent manner, and we're happy so far with the progress in terms of numbers. But we urge advocates to turn out and vote.
We also appeal to all employers to release their advocates who are employees so that they can come and vote. We also got communication from the Law Society of Kenya to the courts to facilitate the lawyers who are attending court to get time to come and vote.
We are looking for a law society that will continue to champion for its members as well as members of the public. We are also heading into a national election cycle in Kenya, where we will require a law society that can speak about electoral reforms as well as electoral preparedness.
We want strong leaders for the Law Society of Kenya, leaders who are going to deliver matters public interest, leaders who are going to ensure that the judiciary is not corrupted, leaders who are going to ensure that the executive arm of government is kept under check through the doctrine of checks and balances.
While that particular election was actually held yesterday, where lawyers voted to choose the next president, vice president, and the council member of the society, which represents more than 20,000 practicing advocates nationwide. And of course, now Mr. Charles Kanjama takes over from Faith Odhiambo, who has been in the helm of that particular office. All right, it is the 30 minutes past the top of the hour. We're taking a short breather here on the drift, but when we come back after the break, we're going to tell you what exactly the newspapers are saying. Don't go too far. Alright, welcome back to the program. We're watching The Drift. Now let's take a look on what's making headlines in the dailies today. And top story on the Daily Nation newspaper. And actually I'm having the Daily Nation newspaper and the Standard newspaper dated today, the 20th day of February 2026. Now top story on this Daily Nation. There is a picture there, actually, of Rodin Haji, who's the Director General of NIS. Alright, and it states, how police foiled city terror plots. The uneasy calm. The last deadly attack was on 2019 Dusit D2 raid. Of course, some of the weapons that were seized actually are 5 AK-47 assault rifles and 1 Makarov pistol with 24 rounds of ammunition, and as well as 20 magazines with 600 rounds of ammunition, and as well as 6 hand grenades explosive for close range attacks. Right, and medical supplies impounded was actually Tecomol, that is paracetamol to fever and pain, and as well as 3 elastic bandages for treating injuries, and as well as next step for 40 mg acid reducing medication, and as well as vitamin K3 injections that helps in blood clotting, and as well as Palmol diclofenac used for pain relief, anti-inflammatory, and as well as 4 disposable syringes. All right. Now, on the eve of the rare coincidental start of Ramadan, and land security agents stormed at hideout in Kajiado and seized 13 men. All right. Now, the operation on Tuesday night followed days of painstaking surveillance on the suspects who are plotting a terrorist attack. Now, let's take a look at that particular story on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Now, it is titled, how police foiled a Nairobi terror plot set for the holy month. Now, Kenyan security agencies have foiled what officials describe as a major terror attack planned for Nairobi during the holy month of Ramadan, disrupting a network believed to be linked to the Somalia-based extremism group of Al-Shabaab. Now, the operation executed late Tuesday night was the culmination of what sources describe as weeks, possibly months, of intelligence work by the officers drawn from the National Intelligence Service, that is NIS, supported by the Multi-Agency Special Operations Group. Now, the suspects were arrested at a hideout in Kajiado County, where they were allegedly finalizing plans for a coordinated strike. Security agents seized 10 Kenyans, 2 Tanzanians, and a Ugandan as they planned to leave for Nairobi. Now the Dabab refugee camp has been identified as their operation base, and a cache of weapons and supplies was recovered during the raid, painting a vivid picture of the cell's capability. And among items seized were 5 AK-47 assault rifles, powerful automatic weapons capable of sustained fire, along with 20 magazines loaded with 600 rounds of ammunition, enough to fuel prolonged gun battles. Now, the multi-agency team has also found 6 hand grenades, small but deadly explosives designed to cause maximum damage in close quarters, and a Makarov pistol with 24 rounds of 9 millimeters ammunition and a compact handgun often used to back up weapon. Now, sources said that this arsenal alone demonstrated the group's readiness to inflict mass casualties and destabilize communities had the plot not been disrupted. Now, beyond the weapons, investigators covered a range of medical and logistical supplies. This included elastic bandages and treating injuries, vitamin K3 in injections used to help blood clotting, and a Powermol, as well as a painkiller and anti-inflammatory drug, paracetamol, and fever and pain relief. And next, a step 40 mg medication that reduces stomach acid, often prescribed for ulcers or reflux. Right now, together, all these items reveal the cell's preparedness not only for combat but also for sustaining operations over time. Now, the medical supplies point to an ability to treat battlefield wounds and manage pain, while food provisions suggest plans for endurance. Security sources said that materials intercepted in recent days indicated that Al-Shabaab operatives intended to stage attacks during Ramadan, which has just begun. Now, this year has a rare coincidence of Islam's Ramadan and Christians' Lent starting together. Intelligence also pointed to discussions involving kidnappings or the tactic the terrorists have previously deployed to generate global attention and ransom, right? And the story actually goes on and on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation, right? And one would actually paint a picture of this terror, if it was not intercepted by the police, how it would have looked like, right? These people actually had 5 AK-47 rifle with 600 rounds of ammunition, right? And as well as a Macharia pistol with 24 rounds and 600 grenades. So one can imagine, how that will be. And how I pray that, even as the police do their work, we pray that God may protect us. All right? Quite an unfortunate story right there. And and of course, kudos to the NIS, the National Intelligence Security, as well as the police. All right? Moving on to other matters making headlines on the Daily Nation. Why a Nairobi governor is unable to govern in peace. Nairobi stands out as the only county to have had 5 governors since the advent of devolution in 2013. Now the incumbent Johnson Sakaja joins his predecessors in seeking State House help to run the city. That's a story on page 10 of the Daily Nation. Of course, you'll remember that this particular week actually, Nairobi governor, that is Johnson Sakaja, actually had an tete-a-tete with the head of state where, they signed an 80 billion partnership where, the national government is expected to, partner with the Nairobi government to, for development. And a section of members of Nairobi County Assembly MCAs have endorsed the cooperation agreement between the national government and the county, insisting that the deal will help to restart long-stalled reforms. The agreement was signed by Prime Cabinet Secretary, that is Musalia Mudavadi, on behalf of the national government, and Governor Johnson Sakaja on behalf of the county government at State House Nairobi. That was on Tuesday. Now, the 30 MCAs led by Minority Leader Anthony Kiragu yesterday asked residents to support what they described as people-centered framework aimed at improving service delivery and infrastructure. Now, they say that the partnership will address critical funding gaps that have constrained Nairobi for years. Under the agreement, the national government is expected to inject an additional 80 billion Kenya shillings into Nairobi, funding projects infrastructure, urban renewal, and public services. Mr. Kirago as well criticized those against the deal, saying that the political disputes risks derailing an opportunity to reposition Nairobi as a globally competitive city. They constructed Nairobi's estimated 40 billion Kenya shillings budget, serving a population of more than 7 million, with the significantly larger municipal budgets of global capitals such as the Paris and New York, which also benefit from structured national government support. Right? That's a story on page 10 of the Daily Nation. All right. Now moving on to other stories making headlines on the Daily Nation. Those feeder women face off with Moi's minister over sex saga. That's actually drawn from a book or the memoir of the Chief Justice, that is Martha Koome. And the second installment of the exclusive 3-part serialization of court encouraged Chief Justice Martha Koome's autobiography by Moran Publishers. She writes about the rise of FIDA Kenya, a robust women's rights organization. One epic case involved a brave Catholic priest who was later murdered, and two endangered girls he was helping to get justice after they had accused a powerful Moi era minister of defiling them. That's a story on page 2 and 3 of the Daily Nation. Now let's take a look on the Standard newspaper this particular morning. And the top story on the Standard newspaper, as you can see on your screens, the sidelines of your screens, you can see the title is actually Absentee Governors. All right? And I don't know if you actually know the names of all the governors across our 47 counties. Now this is what the Standard labels as absentee governors, and that includes Jeremiah Lomorukai, that is the governor of Turkana County. His picture is right there on the front page of the Standard newspaper, and as well as Benjamin Cheboi, the county governor of Baringo County, and as well as Mohamud M. Ali Marsabit County Governor, Nadif Jama, Garissa County Governor, Mohamed Aidan from Mandera County, and as well as Abdi Guyo from Isiolo County, and lastly Ahmed Abdullahi for Wajir County, who also doubles up as the chair of the COG, the Council of Governors. All right, and as well as I was forgetting Isa Timami from Lamu County. All right. Now the Standard says that more than 500 billion Kenya shillings has flowed into marginalized counties since devolution, yet residents say they are still trapped in penury. Now, while Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, Isiolo, and Marsabit rank among the country's top spenders on development, critics argue that the money has built offices, residences, and prestige projects rather than roads, water systems, and hospitals. Now, part of the problem is governors leading from Nairobi instead of the ground where they can prioritize what affects majority of the residents. Now, as billions are accounted for on paper, citizens are demanding to know where is the change on the ground. That's a story on page 4, 5, and 6 of the Standard newspaper. Now, let's take a look on what citizens has to say in regards to where this money is actually going, the expenditure. All right, and the irony of governors who spend most on development with little to show. That's the title on the Standard newspaper on page 4 of the Standard. And since 2013, the 5 counties, that is Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, Isiolo, and Marsabit, have had 456 billion Kenya shillings budgeted, but has accessed 443 billion on their current and development budgets. Now, the counties which are part of the frontier counties economic bloc have been among the leading spenders on the development projects. Now, of the 443 billion Kenya shillings spent over more than 10 years since the first governor took office, data shows that 35.9% or 158.86 billion or 64.1% spent on recurrent expenditure. Now, data from the Controller of Budgets, that is the COB, shows that some of the counties spent more than half of their budgets on development in the early years of devolution and consistently formed major economic hubs such as Nairobi and Kisumu in development spending. Now, despite the billions spent, however, residents of the northern Kenya continue to grapple with penury. Now, analysts cite a mix of misplaced priorities and poor leadership by governors, as well as failure by county assemblies and the Senate to hold county leaders to account. Now, they also note that the national government has viewed the region through a political lens, relegating development concerns, a factor they say has contributed to continued underdevelopment of the north. All right. And there is a table there accounting for the 443 billion Kenya shillings, an amount Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, Isiolo, and Marsabit have spent on their recurrent and development budgets, and the culminating spending since 2013 to 2014. All right. Now, in Mandera County, the county expenditure is 124.9. and the recurrent expenditure is 73.02. Our development is 51.86, and as well as Wajir County expenditure is 104.7, recurrent is 67.21, and on development they actually spent 37.6. And in Garissa County, the county expenditure is 87.42, the current expenditure is 64.2, and as well as the development in that particular county is 37.6. Garissa County expenditure is 87.42, the recurrent expenditure that is 64.2, and as well as the development is 23.28, and as well as in Isiolo County expenditure is 47.68, and the recurrent is 33.71, and on development is 13.97. County expenditure in Turkana is 129.16. The recurrent in Turkana County is 85.72, and as well as on development is 43.74. Marsabit County expenditure is 78.38. Recurrent is 46.16. And on development is 32.15. Now, Lamu County expenditure 32.63, on recurrent 24.18, and on development is 8.46. Last but not least, Baringo County expenditure is 68.2, recurrent is 51.02, and on development is 17.19, and that's according to the Controller of Budget report. All right. Now, on page 5, it actually asks devolution or dissertation. Now, northeastern leaders face locals' wrath, and former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has ignited public discourse on the underdevelopment of the northeastern region, dividing the political class to residents, professionals, and intellectuals from the region are weighed in. Now, Gachagua has attributed the underdevelopment to failure of leadership and accountability, claiming leaders of the northeastern devolved units have treated public offices as a private investment vehicle. Of course, in regards to these developing stories, in regards to what the standard terms as absentee governors, I will remember that for the better part of last week, we actually saw the back and forth between senators and the Council of Governors, where Council of Governors actually say that they are being harassed when they appear to these committees. Right, and the senators as well, on the other hand, argue that it is their representation, their paperwork does not, the paperwork is not actually appealing, right? The governors as well, on the other hand, say that senators are actually embarrassing them. But one would ask the question: if you're a governor of a certain county, should you, provide, how you've spent the devolution money, which is that the county is actually given by the national government? How have you spent this particular money? And when these governors actually question about how they've used the money, they're saying that they are being harassed. Now, the standard says that, these absentee governors, they're being allocated this amount of money, and yet their counties remain underdeveloped, right? What's your thoughts on, this particular story? Tell us through our SMS line to 3059. Now let's take a look on other stories making headlines on the Standard newspaper. Now, beyond fasting, what all faithful should aspire for this holy month and Ramadan, and the 9th month of Islamic lunar calendar stands as a beacon of spiritual renewal, as discipline and reflection for Muslims worldwide. It is more than just fasting from dawn to sunset. It is a holistic journey designed to cultivate virtues, strengthen faith, and foster community bonds, as Sheikh Rishad Rajab of Masjid Gibran in Mombasa reminds us that Ramadan is a time when Allah opens the doors of mercy and answers the supplications of his servants. All right, that's a story on page 2 in regards to the Islamic religion and this the holy month of Ramadan. You can take a look at that as well on page 2 of the Standard newspaper, as well as on page 2 as well. It says, fasting up country means devotion through resilience and self-control. That's story as well on matters Ramadan, the holy month of fasting, as they say. All right. Now, Nakuru women who lives for the downtrodden. Now, dressed in elegant black buibui, Mwenye Maimamu steps into court, her calm demure concealing the burning flame inside her. Now her smile buries the struggles, emotions, and untold stories she goes through, selflessly seeking justice. She was called names due to her advocacy and vocal stand in condemnation of the wrongdoings in society. Now Maimuna has seen it all, from forced marriage at a young age to being accused of being a rebel in religious leaders. Now justice and equality are the language she fights for. The less fortunate advocating for justice and fighting against oppression. Now even her religion, she says, couldn't stop her from defending human rights, a voice that can't be silenced, a job she does with pride. All right, and that's a story actually on page 3 of the Standard newspaper this particular morning. Moving on to other stories on the Standard, says Ruth Odinga challenges Salah's claims about close ties to Raila. Now businessman Okech Salah has responded to Kisumu women rep Ruth Odinga following her KTN interview on Wednesday evening. Now the exchange also arose after Ruth dismissed Salah's claims about his closeness to the late former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga and his involvement during Odinga's final days abroad. And he says, and I quote, "I really don't know him that well. In my whole life, I have met Okech Salah about 3 times. I don't know him and would not like to engage in talking about him," she said. Now she challenged Salah to disclose what he claims, the former prime or the premier confident in him, saying he should provide evidence if he truly knew her brother. Right? In her response, Salah yesterday described her remarks as inaccurate and said, and I quote, "Let me be clear, if you don't wish to be associated with me, that's your own choice. I have never forced myself into your life, nor sought your attention," he said, and of course, insisting that his relationship was solely with Raila Odinga. Now Salah further claimed that he facilitated Ruth's travel to India to visit Raila, arranging her business class ticket on Emirates. Right? That's what's up, what's actually happening in the Odinga family. All right? Now, on other matters making headlines, which actually made headlines yesterday, the Russian embassy speaks on hiring for Ukraine war. Now, the Russian embassy in Nairobi has, for the first time, spoken about illegal recruitment of Kenyan citizens into Russia's war against Ukraine. The embassy spoke at a time where Russia's image in the country has slid into the territory of a serial abuser of human rights. So far, about 35 families whose kin were secretly recruited to fight in the ongoing offshore war have demanded their loved ones brought back. Now the families made their call after submitting a formal petition to Prime Cabinet Secretary, that is Musalia Mudavadi, and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. They also submitted another petition to Labour and Social Protection CS, that is Alfred Mutua, and the representative principal secretaries, National Assembly of Kenya and the state. Now the petitions sought urgent parliamentary oversight, comprehensive status reporting enhanced, consular access, and accelerated repatriation efforts. And one may ask the question then, when these things actually happen in the office of the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs is actually silent. We haven't heard from him, since this family started saying that, their kids were recruited in Russian war illegally, right? But they have remained silent. Quite unfortunate. Now, Kanjama has elected lawyers lobby boss to succeed Faith Mwani Odhiambo. Now, Senior Counsel Charles Kanjama is the 52nd Law Society of Kenya President. Kanjama beat lawyer Peter Wanyama and ongoing Vice President Maura Kabata by more than 1,000 votes margin to clinch the top seat. Now, Kanjama garnered at least 3,734 votes, with Nairobi Central and Mombasa being his strongholds, while Wanyama came in second, dominating Western Bloc with 2,634. In the meantime, Kabata came in third with at least 2,118 votes, with his constituents being majority young advocates. Now, from the numbers, at least 8,000 advocates cast their votes yesterday, whipping members of the last minute, including offering transport to anyone who did not have the means to the polling stations. Now, in their race to succeed Faith Odhiambo, Kabata and Kanjama voted in the morning, while Wanyama cast his ballot at about noon. The Independent Electoral Memories Commission chairman, that is Erastus Edange Thakon, and Commissioners Moses Mukhwana, ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna, and Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka were among notable persons who cast their votes at the Supreme Court polling station. Right? That's what's up on matters to do, with the corridors of justice. And now the LSK has now new president, that is Charles Kanjama, taking over from Faith Mwani Odhiambo. All right, now on page 12 of the Standard newspaper, MPs back 8 billion Kenya shillings corporation deal, reject ouster plots, and Nairobi's MPs allied to the broad-based government arrangement have drawn their weight behind 8 billion corporation agreement between President William Ruto and Governor Johnson Sakaja, even as MCS dismissed a fresh plot to impeach the city boss. Speaking days after the State House deal, the leaders moved to address concerns over oversight of the funds and claims that the pact amounted to power grab by the national government. That's the story you can take a look at on page 12 of the Standard newspaper, as well as on page 12 as well. Postmortem confirms Vincent Oyom was shot at close range. Now, fresh grief and anger engulfed the family of Vincent Oyamo after postmortem confirmed that the 28-year-old was killed by a single gunshot fired at close range, reinforcing their belief that his death was deliberate and unjust. Now, the autopsy was conducted yesterday by a government pathologist in Nairobi Funeral Home in the presence of the family and their lawyers, ending days of anxious waiting marked by confusion, delays, and emotional exhaustion. Now, Advocate Janja Maina, representing the family, said that the findings painted a grim picture of police brutality. That's the story on page 12 of the Standard. And of course, we hope that justice actually be served to the family, because we've actually seen police excesses over the years. It's quite an unfortunate trend right here in the country. We hope that justice will be served to the bereaved family and friends. Of course, our condolences pours to the family and friends of Vincent Ayom, who was shot dead. All right. Still on matters of security, police foiled terror attacks with firearms ahead of Ramadan. That's a story we had taken a look at on the Daily Nation, where security agencies foiled what could have been a major terrorist attack in Nairobi, targeting social facilities at the start of the holy month of Ramadan. A raid on Tuesday night uncovered a cache of weapons, ammunition, medical supplies, and provisions. The operations carried out by the National Intelligence Service and Special Operations Group officer followed weeks of surveillance, while officials declined to confirm the exact number of firearms seized. Sources told the Standard that a haul including 5 AK-47 rifles, assorted automatic weapons, 600 grenades, and anti-personnel explosives, and as well as, Macharia pistol with 24 rounds of ammunition, 600 rounds of 20 magazines containing 600 rounds were also recovered. All right. That's what you're waking up to this morning as far as news and the governance of this particular country is concerned. Of course, we shall be keeping tabs with these developing stories. I shall be bringing you in our subsequent bulletins later on in the day at 1 p.m., 4 p.m., 7 p.m., and 9 p.m. My name is Macharia. On that note, we wrap up our program. You've been watching The Drift. Thank you so much for keeping me company until this particular minute. The leadership challenge is actually coming up next in the top of the hour. Macharia is my name. Have yourself a lovely day. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. As always, let's do this again when God says we do.